summer is coming to an end and fall is starting, and it's hard to believe that it's actually time to start thinking about next year's gardening season. But if you would like to plant bulbs in your garden, now is the time to start doing your research. And one of the best places to start is to either get out all those bulb catalogs that you're receiving in the mail right now, or go online and check out some of the bulb growers. It's really good to do that research first, even if you're going to purchase your bulbs at a garden center, which is fine. You can mail order or purchase bulbs at a garden center. Sometimes it's nice to just look at your bulbs and see what they look like before you put them in the ground, instead of being surprised by what you get in the mail. However, there are some very reputable dealers, and so it's fine. But you want to start with the catalogs, and just to look, we'll use tulips as an example, and check the bloom time, because they come in different groups. That you can have early season, mid-season, and late season. The same goes for daffodils. And you want to check and see when they bloom. Now, if you're buying these in a nursery or garden center, it will usually tell you on the package. And if you want your tulips or your daffodils to bloom at the same time, you're going to want to line that up. So have all early season. If you want to spread out your bloom time, then you'd like to have some in each category. Now, once you've done that type of research, then what you want to do, if you're picking them out on your own, is you want to go in, and when you're purchasing them, this is a muscari, and it is an example of a bulb that has a tunic on it. This papery covering, you want to make sure that your bulbs have this papery covering, and they're not, if they're just white like that, you don't want those bulbs. You want the ones that have their outer covering on it. The other thing that you want to look for are bulbs that aren't shriveled. You want to make sure that they're plump. These are some iris, and if you look here, you can kind of tell that these have dried out, and that means they're old. So it's kind of like when you go to the store and you buy garlic, you know how you kind of look and you kind of squeeze it, and if it's firm, then you know it's good. Same thing goes for bulbs. You want to make sure they're firm and that they don't have any mold on them or insect damage. Now, I actually have some daffodils here that I dug that I'm going to replant. Daffodils are one that crowd out. And so over time, you may notice that you have a whole lot of foliage and not as many blooms. And so if that starts happening, what you can do is dig them and divide them. You can actually do that right now, because what happens to bulbs, why they do so well, is they go dormant over the summer. See, they don't even have any roots on them right now. And that way, they don't use any water over the summer. You can dig them, divide them, and then plant them back in the ground, and that's what we're going to do. Now, usually they tell you to do this when the foliage turns brown, which is a good time to divide them, which is earlier in the season, because you can actually find them. If you know where your bulbs are, you can still dig them and divide them right now. So if you missed that opportunity and you know where they are, go ahead and dig them now. Just dig a little deeper than what you planted them, because over time what happens is they tend to kind of work themselves down deeper in the soil, which is also why they may not bloom as well. Now, I have these daffodils, and that brings up another point as to the planting depth. Now, there are several different ways that you can plant them, but first, how do you know how deep? Because that's very important. If you plant them too deep, they may not grow or they may not bloom for you. If you plant them too shallowly, they may freeze out or get dug up by animals and eaten. So generally speaking, you want to plant them about 2 times the height of the bulb. Now, the interesting thing about that is this is probably about 1.5 inches, so I'd say maybe 3 inches tall. You can vary that a bit, 1 inch on either side, and it can really depend on the soil that you have. If you have a sandy soil, you can plant bulbs deeper. If you have a very heavy clay soil like we have here, then you can bring them up a little bit, but don't get too shallow. So I have these daffodil bulbs, And I am going to plant them. Now the other thing that varies is how you can plant them. You've seen these. They're bulb planters. You can dig individual holes and go in. You can also use an auger, which goes on your drill. They even make them, if you don't like to bend over quite so much, you can have a longer auger. These are both wonderful tools for planting bulbs, and they make quick work of it. The way that I like to plant bulbs, because I kind of tend to want to have a more naturalized look, is to dig a hole or trench here, and I've got it dug, and then place them inside. Now I've got my trench dug, and say I'm going to plant these at about, I'm going to plant these at about 4 inches deep, and that would be 4 inches from the bottom of the bulb. I've got my trench dug, and I've got the soil loosened a couple inches deeper than that. And that's a good thing to do. Go ahead and loosen the soil. If I were going to plant them at 4 inches, loosen them to about 6 inches or even maybe 8 inches and get that soil worked up. Then we're going to add some bone meal. You can also add like tulip or bulb food in, and it'll tell you on the package how much. This is about a teaspoon per plant, and this is the area that you want to work that in. So we're just going to kind of broadcast it in here and mix it around. Now the reason that you do this is that your roots are going to be taking up the nutrients, and so you want that fertilizer worked in down around the roots and not up here around the bulb. Then what you can do is just come in here and plant your bulbs. And that's another thing, it will say on the package about how far apart to plant them. And if you're kind of naturalizing them, you can actually put them a little closer together if you like. And we're just going to place them in here. The other thing that you can do is maybe vary the spacing a bit so that they look a little bit more like they just happened to grow in here instead of being planted. So, all right, now I've got them placed in here. The next thing that you're going to do is just take and cover them with your soil, and go ahead and break that up good. And now I'm going to cover these, and then I'm going to water them in. But after that, I really don't want to water them again until I start to see foliage. It's very important, because bulbs like to be dry when they're dormant, that you don't overwater them while they don't have any foliage and they're not taking up any water. And that's another good reason why when you pick your planting site, to choose a well-drained area, someplace that doesn't hold water, especially over the winter. But you have a better chance of your bulbs not drowning out on you. So anyway, after we get them covered, we're going to water them in. And then just like that, we've got a great start on next season's garden.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.